Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's great to have you all with us as we continue our deep dive into Plato's Republic.
That's right.
Last time we kind of skimmed the surface of Plato's ideal society, right?
Mm-hmm.
His utopia.
Yes.
But today we're going deeper.
We are.
We're going right to the heart of it all. We're exploring the philosophers themselves.
Yeah, focusing on the specific virtues that Plato believed made philosophers, uniquely suited to lead.
I like it.
And we're using Plato's The Republic, the Philosopher's Virtue, as our guide.
Perfect. So Plato had some pretty strong opinions on what makes a philosopher tick.
Yeah.
Way beyond, just pondering life's big questions in a toga.
Right.
Although I'm sure there was a bit of that too, right?
Of course.
But first up, the love of truth.
Oh, yeah. Plato basically paints philosophers as these truth-seeking detectives always on the hunt for clues.
Yeah.
They just refuse to accept any surface-level explanations, and they just constantly probe deeper.
So they're like human fact-checking machines, always on high alert.
That's a great way to put it.
The source even mentions them, fact-checking every story.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, that could make them the most annoying party guests.
Absolutely.
Constantly calling people out.
Well, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'd be the most valuable friend you have.
True. Think about it. How often do we just accept things at face value, without questioning?
Yeah, that's true.
This love of truth, it's not just for philosophers.
Right.
It's crucial for all of us, just to navigate this crazy information-saturated world that we live in.
Okay, I see your point.
Yeah.
But how do we cultivate this love of truth in our own lives?
Yeah.
Are we all supposed to become, professional fact-checkers?
Not necessarily. It starts with curiosity.
Okay.
And it's about questioning those assumptions and seeking evidence before we form, strong opinions. Imagine, you're scrolling through your social media feed.
Okay.
And instead of just accepting every headline, you pause. You dig a little deeper. You consider different perspectives.
Yeah.
That's the love of truth in action.
So it's about being, a little bit more skeptical, even about things we think we already know.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense, especially with all the misinformation out there.
Absolutely. And, that actually leads us to the next virtue, courage.
Oh, hold on. We're not talking about, physical bravery here, are we?
Oh.
No philosopher gladiators battling lions in the Colosseum.
No, not quite. Although that would be an interesting sight to see.
It would.
Plato's talking about intellectual courage, the willingness to challenge norms, to ask those uncomfortable questions, to even face the possibility that you might be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having the guts to stand up for what you believe in, even if it goes against the grain.
The source mentions this great example, questioning pineapple on pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that takes some serious courage, especially in certain circles.
Absolutely. It might seem like a lighthearted example, but it perfectly illustrates the point.
Okay.
Intellectual courage. It's about pushing boundaries. It's about challenging that status quo and being open to those new perspectives.
So where do we apply this in our daily lives?
Yeah.
What are some areas where we could all use a dose of intellectual courage?
Well, think about your workplace. Are there inefficient processes that everyone just accepts as the way things are? What would happen if you questioned those norms?
Yeah.
Even if it meant rocking the boat a little.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's making me think about all those meetings I sit through
Yeah.
where I just nod along.
Right.
Even if I have doubts.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to speak up. What about you? What areas of your life could benefit from a little intellectual courage?
It's a good question. It's one worth pondering.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that require a certain kind of strength, let's move on to another essential virtue, temperance.
Temperance? That sounds a bit old-fashioned, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like something out of a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah, it might sound old-fashioned,
Right.
but it's incredibly relevant today.
Okay.
Maybe even more so than in Plato's time.
Really?
He described it as self-control and balance.
Okay.
Not being ruled by, fleeting desires or impulses.
So it's like resisting that urge to binge watch an entire season of your favorite show in one sitting.
Yes.
Even though Netflix is basically begging you to.
Precisely. In our world of, instant gratification, temperance is the ability to hit pause.
I like that.
It's about delaying gratification and focusing on what truly matters.
That's a tough one.
It is.
Especially with all the, the distractions vying for our attention.
Yeah.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with temptations from social media notifications to, breaking news alerts.
Oh, all the time.
It's a lot.
You're absolutely right. That's why cultivating temperance is so important. It's about finding that balance between indulging in those pleasures and maintaining control over our desires, our time, and our attention.
So if I'm understanding this correctly,
Yeah.
the love of truth is about like seeking knowledge.
Yeah.
And courage is about challenging what we think we know.
That's right.
And then temperance is about how we manage all that knowledge, right?
Yes, you nailed it. It's about being mindful. It's about being intentional and resisting that urge to get sucked into that digital vortex.
Plato really was onto something here. These aren't just dusty old virtues.
No.
They're like essential life skills for the 21st century.
I agree.
So that brings us to another crucial virtue, justice.
Yes. And, when most people hear justice, they immediately think about laws in courtrooms, right?
Yeah.
But Plato had a much broader vision, didn't he?
He did. For Plato, justice wasn't just about, punishing wrongdoers. It was about creating a society where everyone thrives.
Right.
And contributes to the common good.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's about fairness. It's about harmony. Understanding your role, respecting others.
Nice.
The source even uses this very relatable example, a well-functioning group project.
Okay.
Where everyone contributes equally.
So it's less about an eye for an eye.
Right.
And more about, fostering this sense of shared responsibility.
That's exactly it.
Interesting.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have consequences.
So how can we promote justice in our own lives, in our families, workplaces, our communities?
That's a great question. It makes me think about how I can be a more considerate friend, a more engaged citizen, a more ethical member of my community.
That's great.
What about you? What does justice look like in your world?
That's something to think about. And as we're considering justice, we naturally lead into that final virtue that Plato emphasizes.
Right.
Wisdom.
Yes.
Wisdom. Now, this one feels particularly relevant to our deep dive. But Platonic wisdom, it isn't just about racking up, like, trivia facts, right?
Definitely not. It's about understanding the deeper essence of things, Seeing beyond the surface. Remember Plato's theory of the forms?
Yes.
Those perfect eternal concepts that exist outside the realm of our senses?
Right, like the perfect form of a circle or justice.
Yes.
Or dare I say even a perfect pizza.
Exactly. Wisdom for Plato was about grasping those forms, understanding the true nature of things.
So it's kind of like, seeing the matrix, the code behind reality.
I like that.
The source even compares it to, like, having the cheat codes to the game of life.
Yeah.
But of course not for any nefarious purposes.
Of course not.
Right.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's about using that deeper understanding wisely and ethically to navigate the complexities of existence. Think about it, How often do we make decisions based on just superficial information?
All the time.
On what appears to be true, rather than what actually is.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's, judging someone based on their appearance,
right,
or falling for, like, a clickbait headline, we often make decisions without truly understanding the bigger picture.
That's right.
So that's where wisdom comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about taking that step back, seeking that deeper understanding and making choices that align with those insights.
Yeah.
So how can we cultivate this kind of wisdom in our own lives?
Yeah.
What areas require more than just surface level knowledge?
That's a great question. One I'm going to be pondering for a while.
Yeah, me too.
What about you? What are some areas where you could use a bit more Platonic wisdom in your life? Maybe it's finances, relationships, or even just choosing which news sources to trust.
Right. It's a journey we all take, and these virtues are our guideposts. But here's where things get really interesting. Plato believed that these 5 virtues, love of truth, courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom, made philosophers uniquely suited to be, rulers.
Wait.
Yeah.
Philosophers running the show.
Yeah.
That sounds like either a recipe for utopia.
It could be.
Or total chaos.
Or it could be total chaos.
Right.
It's definitely a bold idea.
It is.
Plato called these ideal rulers philosopher kings.
Philosopher kings, okay.
And as you can imagine, it's sparked plenty of debate over the centuries.
I bet it has.
I mean, it certainly wouldn't be your typical government, that's for sure.
No, not at all.
I can just imagine the campaign slogans,
Oh, yeah.
Vote for Sophia for a more just republic, or
Right.
something like that.
I can see the headlines now.
Oh, yeah.
Philosopher King proposes new tax based on the form of the good.
Exactly.
Okay, but jokes aside,
Right.
I can see why some people might be, a little skeptical about this whole thing. Wouldn't philosophers be a little too detached
Yeah.
from the practical realities of actually running a country?
Yeah, I mean, they'd be up in the clouds,
Fine.
contemplating these abstract ideas while the economy's tanking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a common critique.
Yeah.
And it's one that Plato actually anticipated.
Okay.
Our source even mentions this third wave argument.
Third wave argument. Okay.
Yeah, suggesting that philosophers, despite all those lovely virtues,
Right.
might lack the hands-on experience needed for effective leadership.
So are we saying that Plato was wrong?
Mm.
Was this whole philosopher king thing just a pipe dream?
Not necessarily.
Right.
You see, Plato had a counter-argument.
Okay.
And it goes back to those forms we were talking about, remember?
Right.
Those represent perfect, eternal concepts.
Like justice.
Yes. Justice, beauty, truth, all of that. Plato believed that philosophers, because they spend their lives contemplating these forms, would have the clearest vision.
Of what's truly good.
I see. So
Yeah.
it's like, so they have this blueprint
Yeah.
for the ideal society
Yeah.
based on these eternal truths.
Exactly.
Okay.
Plato argues that this deep understanding of the good would guide them
Yeah.
in creating laws and policies that benefit everyone,
Mm-hmm.
leading to a harmonious and flourishing society.
Okay.
Imagine, a leader who makes decisions not based on short-term gains
Right.
or political maneuvering,
Yeah.
but on a deep understanding of what's truly just and beneficial for all.
Yeah, I can see the appeal of that, especially in today's world where things often feel, chaotic and just so short-sighted.
Absolutely.
But does knowledge of the good automatically make you a good leader?
That's a good question.
What about all those other qualities that we expect from our leaders?
Right.
Things like, charisma,
Yeah.
communication skills,
Of course.
the ability to compromise.
Yeah. And maybe even a little bit of, savvy when it comes to dealing with those pesky opposition parties.
Those are all valid points.
Right.
Plato's idea raises some important questions about what makes for truly effective leadership.
Exactly.
Does philosophical wisdom trump practical experience?
That's a good question.
Can you be both a deep thinker and a charismatic leader
Right.
who can rally the people? And how do you balance those lofty ideals with the messy realities of actually governing a diverse and often divided society?
You've just given our listeners a lot to think about.
I hope so.
It's making me imagine a philosopher king trying to navigate today's political landscape.
Oh, can you imagine?
Right.
That would be something.
Instead of sound bites and campaign promises, they'd be giving these speeches about the nature of justice and the pursuit of wisdom.
Can you imagine those press conferences?
Oh, I know.
Reporters asking about the latest scandal, and the philosopher king launching into a discourse on the form of the good.
Okay, that's hilarious.
It would be entertaining.
But also kind of fascinating, right?
It would.
But seriously, do you think Plato's idea of philosopher kings has any relevance today?
Yeah.
Is it just a fun thought experiment, or could it offer some practical insights for modern leadership?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
While the idea of philosophers literally ruling a nation might seem far-fetched,
Right.
I think Plato's emphasis on those 5 key virtues
Yeah.
is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Could we benefit from leaders who demonstrate a deeper love of truth,
Absolutely.
intellectual courage, a commitment to justice,
Mhm.
and a genuine desire to understand the common good?
I think most people would agree with that, regardless of their political leanings.
Sure.
But finding those qualities in the real world of politics,
It's tough.
well, let's just say it can be a challenge.
You're not wrong.
Right.
But maybe Plato's ideas can serve as a kind of, aspirational guide,
Okay.
a set of benchmarks
Mm-hmm.
for what we should be looking for in those who lead us.
So instead of expecting, politicians to be these perfect philosopher kings,
Right.
we can use these virtues as a lens
Yes.
to evaluate their decisions and actions.
Exactly.
Right. Are they demonstrating a genuine love of truth? Are they courageous enough to challenge the status quo?
Mm-hmm.
Are they making choices that benefit the common good, even if it's not politically expedient?
Precisely. And maybe even more importantly, these virtues can guide us, as individuals, as citizens. Are we engaging in critical thinking? Are we holding our leaders accountable? Are we striving to embody these virtues in our own lives?
Those are all fantastic points.
Yeah.
So while we might not see a philosopher king on the ballot anytime soon,
Probably not.
Plato's ideas still have a lot to teach us.
They do.
About leadership, about citizenship.
Absolutely.
And the kind of society we want to create.
I couldn't agree more. And that brings us back to the heart of our deep dive.
Yeah.
Those 5 virtues that Plato believed were essential, not just for philosophers, but for anyone seeking a fulfilling and meaningful life.
Exactly. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the love of truth to the pursuit of wisdom, from intellectual courage to the complexities of justice.
A lot.
And while Plato's ideal of philosopher kings might seem like this distant utopia,
Sure.
These virtues are very much within our reach, right here, right now.
They are. They're not, they're not just abstract concepts. They're qualities that we can cultivate in our daily lives.
Absolutely.
Think about your interactions with your family, your decisions at work, even how you engage with information online.
Right.
These virtues can be applied in every aspect of life.
So as we wrap up this segment of our deep dive, we want you to take a moment and just reflect on these virtues.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see them in your own life? Where could you use a little more of them?
And even more importantly, how can you use these virtues to make a positive impact on the world around you?
It is a question worth pondering.
It is.
And one we hope you'll continue to explore.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Plato's ideal philosopher. It's been quite a journey, right?
Yeah, it has.
Exploring some pretty profound concepts.
We have, from the love of truth to the pursuit of wisdom, really unpacked what makes Plato's philosopher, tick.
Yeah, and here's the key takeaway. These virtues, they're not just for philosophers living in ivory towers.
Right.
They're qualities that we can all cultivate, no matter who we are or what we do.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this deep dive.
It's not just some academic exercise.
Right.
It's a call to action.
It is.
So let's break it down, right? We've talked about these 5 virtues: love of truth, courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. But how do we apply them in our daily lives?
It starts with recognizing that these virtues are all interwoven.
Okay.
They work together to create a more balanced and fulfilling life.
Okay.
Take the love of truth, for example. It's not just about, fact-checking every headline that you see online.
Yeah.
It's about being intellectually honest with yourself, questioning your own biases and being open to different perspectives.
And that takes courage, right?
It does.
Because sometimes the truth can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it might challenge our deeply held beliefs.
Absolutely. Courage isn't just about, facing physical danger. It's about having that intellectual integrity. Yeah.
To stand up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular. It's about speaking truth to power, whether that power is a government or a corporation or even just your own group of friends.
Okay, so we have the love of truth and the courage to seek it out and defend it. But then there's the whole issue of information overload, right?
There is.
That's where temperance comes in.
Absolutely. Temperance is all about finding that balance between, indulging in pleasures and maintaining self-control.
Yeah.
In our world of constant stimulation, it's about choosing to unplug.
Okay.
To step away from the noise and to reconnect with yourself and what truly matters.
So it's not about becoming a hermit,
right,
and living off the grid.
No.
But about making conscious choices.
Yes.
About how we spend our time and attention. Precisely. It's about setting boundaries, prioritizing our values, and resisting that temptation to get swept away by, the latest trend or distraction. Think about those moments when you catch yourself, mindlessly scrolling through social media. Oh yeah. For hours.
I know exactly what you mean.
That's a lack of temperance.
Ouch, that hits a little too close to home.
It does for me too.
But okay, so we have the love of truth,
Mm-hmm.
we have the courage to seek it out,
Yes.
and we have the temperance to manage it wisely. What about justice? How does that fit in?
Well, remember, for Plato, justice wasn't just about laws and punishments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was about creating a harmonious society where everyone contributes to the common good.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that our actions have consequences,
Cool.
not just for ourselves, but for others.
So it's about being mindful of how our choices
Exactly.
impact the people around us.
Yeah.
Our family, coworkers, our community as a whole.
Exactly. It's about striving for fairness in all our interactions, recognizing that we're all interconnected and contributing to a more just and equitable world.
And finally, we come to wisdom.
Yes.
It feels like the culmination of all these virtues.
It does. Wisdom for Plato was about seeing the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the interconnectedness of things. It's about using knowledge and experience to make sound judgments, to guide our actions, and to live a more meaningful life.
It's like having that inner compass
Yes.
that helps us navigate life's
Yeah.
complexities.
It's about learning from our mistakes,
Yeah.
seeking that deeper understanding, and applying that knowledge to make choices that benefit ourselves and others.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Plato's ideal philosopher,
Yeah.
it's clear that these virtues aren't just dusty old concepts.
No, they're not.
They're timeless principles.
Yeah.
They can guide us towards a more fulfilling and impactful life.
Absolutely. And while we might not all become philosopher kings,
Right.
we can all strive to embody these virtues
Yeah.
in our own unique ways.
I love that.
It's a lifelong journey.
It is.
And we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought as you continue on that path.
We've covered a lot of ground today, but we've only just scratched the surface of Plato's brilliant and thought-provoking work.
That's true.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Republic,
Yeah.
make sure to subscribe to our show and leave us a review.
We'd appreciate that.
And don't forget to share it with your friends.
Yeah.
Maybe we can spark some philosophical discussions around the dinner table.
I hope so.
Until next time, keep seeking truth, embrace courage, cultivate temperance, practice justice, and never stop learning.